All right. Well, Stephen, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and begin. Okay. So I want to welcome you all to our first virtual press release. We appreciate your attendance. So my apology for my somber mood today. I just learned in the last 48 hours of a childhood friend who committed suicide this week, and her death has just really been a hard hit for me. That's the seventh person that I know directly that has committed suicide during this shutdown. So with no history of mental health issues for her, it's believed that the combination of living alone and then the isolation during this shutdown just took its toll on her. So it's been kind of a rough few days. So recent stats our team has been looking at recently show mental health experts are predicting suicide deaths in the U.S. to soar past 100,000 this year as a direct result of the closures and the isolation that it brings. A number right now that may exceed the virus deaths. So we'll talk about that more another time. So for today, I'd like to move on to Governor Cooper's press conference this week. I have a brief statement and then I'll open the floor up to questions about that. So this is our take on the press conference. So Cooper's recent press conference regarding phase 2 openings makes about the least amount of sense of anything that preceded this week's announcement. Everything Cooper says is the opposite of what the nationwide data and trends indicate in the states that are already open. There is an enormous and growing body of evidence from dozens of qualified medical experts indicating that staying at home is the wrong course of action. Cooper's new phase is filled with more arbitrary rules that have no data to back them up. Safer at home phase 2 is not good enough for us. Businesses will continue to struggle if they operate under these unconstitutional state government guidelines. So let's consider a few thoughts I have here. Workers will not be back to full capacity if hourly, and they will no longer receive unemployment. Unemployment is one of Cooper's biggest failures, and North Carolina is the worst state in payouts. And major news outlets have covered his failure in this area. So how will workers who have to take a pay cut survive cost of food increasing due to the supply chain issues that we're all seeing? How can we become safer at home in North Carolina, but you can still cross the border to South Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia and do as you please? Does the virus not travel across state lines? You can sit in a restaurant, but not at a bar or a movie theater. That's simply absurd. County and city government can impose stricter restrictions and not open up if their data reflects that they could. So who's in charge here anyway? But those same counties can't look at their own data and make an educated decision to open up faster if they think that that's the reasonable answer for their county. Definitely not a one-size-fits-all here. And yet again, that's what we're seeing. It is saying that if we choose not to wear a mask, that we don't care about people. So the mask wearing data and directives change weekly, wear versus do not wear. And we've all seen that up and down. 5 more weeks of keeping selected businesses closed. 5 more weeks. Where's the science? And although we're being told it's safe to go to Walmart, the State Board of Elections is quietly moving towards changing voting laws that will open up the opportunity for voter fraud. So here is the real lie. His decisions and orders are not boosting the economy if the economy is not at full capacity. Ask any business owner if this is a boost to their business or if they are barely making ends meet at 50% capacity. Will their bills only be at 50% capacity? So let's consider what is a win for us here. Cooper has lost in the court of public opinion on 2 fronts. First is with his own base. The models put out by the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, which are incorrect and have not panned out, but have scared people so much that now Cooper's own base is terrified of opening up, and he is losing their support by moving to phase 2. On the other side, those who now see this as an attack on their way of life will never vote for him. Ultimately, Cooper knows that he has no choice because we are moving forward on opening up without him, as we're seeing statewide. Small businesses, county commissioners, and many sheriffs are defying Cooper's orders. People have had enough. There's cell phone data that shows we are already not staying at home. There's not enough regulatory enforcement infrastructure in the state to check on every business, and we are encouraging business owners to open, and to open by the thousands, and to do it now. We will not accept this current state this current state of affairs as the quote new normal. So on Memorial Day, we are rallying and marching to honor those who pay the ultimate price for freedom. We will not let their sacrifice be in vain. So 5 cities statewide: Asheville, Greensboro, Charlotte, Wilmington, and Raleigh. And I will be in Raleigh. At this point, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Yeah, I've got a question. So I'm going to come in a little bit closer. This is Justin Hinton with WLOS in Asheville. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
So I'm doing well. Thank you. So one of my questions, you had just said you're encouraging businesses to open by the thousands. We talked to one gym today that basically said that he's planning on opening his business. Others aren't quite so sure yet, still trying to take it day by day. What are your thoughts and what's your message for those folks who want to open, but yet you've got lawmakers and DAs that are saying that they are going to prosecute? Just want to get your thoughts on that.
I think that you're going to see so many opening up that it's going to overwhelm the court system. And so I think that it's just got to be a personal choice when it comes to opening, but we're encouraging people to make that stand. I think that what we're seeing is a lot of people are getting citations and then they're hearing from their attorney that it's the equivalent to a speeding ticket, is what I've been told just today. So, I think it has to be a personal choice, but for many people, the choice is very clear because it is a choice between bankruptcy and losing everything that they've worked for, or opening up and defying the order and just taking their chance. And I think that this is one thing that our group REopenNC has worked to get this Freedom to Work Act. We've been putting pressure on the legislature to push this through because there's an entire group of people among the General Assembly who believe that we do have the freedom to work. And so they are working right now to decriminalize that. So I would say to those businesses, if it was me, I'd take my chance and open my doors and let the chips fall where they may and let that come out later in a day of court.
You said there's going to be 5 different locations. Are you guys organizing all 5 of those marches?
Yes, we are.
And you said Raleigh, Charlotte, Asheville, Greenville, and...
No, not Greenville, Greensboro.
Oh, Greensboro.
And Wilmington.
Okay. And what will those look like? I mean, will they be similar to the meetings that we've had in the past? I mean, do you plan on, marching the streets?
Yes. So we're going to have a lot of continuity between all 5 locations. We have county leaders that have been very busy working with us for the last several weeks, months now. And so we've all joined forces and had a lot of meetings about how to execute this across the state. And so, yes, it's going to be a good amount of continuity from each location. We're going to have similar speaking notes. Everyone's going to have a few speakers. Charlotte will actually be the only city that will not be marching, and they'll be doing kind of a rolling car rally, but they'll meet in a parking lot first. And so all the information about that is in our public Facebook page under the events, I believe.
And what do you hope? Do you hope anything different comes out of the events on Monday than have already come out of the events that you've hosted?
I mean, I think a lot of this is just raising public awareness. 5 more weeks, where's the data for that? How can we as North Carolinians just sit back and watch our livelihoods crumble over the course of the next 5 weeks? Who picked this timeline? It's extremely arbitrary. It's not based in any research that I've seen, and I've been looking, believe me. So I think that it is, to continue to put pressure on not only Raleigh, the capital, but on large cities and their, their municipalities to hear the voice of the people. So I just think that it's a good opportunity for the state of North Carolina citizens to come forward and use their voices and to be heard.
Yeah. Hi, Ashley. Jonah Kaplan here.
Hi, Jonah.
Thanks very much for making time for us. I wanted to ask you about you've never really used this language, but some of the other people that have come to these rallies and they use words like tyranny, and they use words or they use comparisons to Nazi Germany. And I wonder if you accept that narrative, if you think that's appropriate. But also, I mean, look, you can maybe disagree with the decisions being made, but do you really think the government does not have at least the best interest of the people in mind? Do you really think they're trying to grab power away from people? Do you think they're trying to solidify the regime? Or can you understand, do you think that they're just, maybe you disagree with the course of action, but they are looking out for the welfare of North Carolinians?
Loaded question as always, Jonah. So first on the topic of, is this tyranny? So I do think that this could be akin to tyranny. When you have the executive branch and the way that our North Carolina government is set up with 3 branches of power, and what we've seen is that the executive branch here, Roy Cooper, has worked without the concurrence of the Council of State. He has not called a Council of State meeting. He's not called a special session. Now the General Assembly has been back in session, but it's a very one-sided situation right now. So I think that this could definitely be akin to tyranny. I think there's a really good quote: when you quarantine sick people, that's a quarantine, but when you quarantine healthy people, that is tyranny. And so I can't disagree with that. I think the rest of your question, would I compare this to Nazi Germany? No, I wouldn't go that far yet. But I think that if we continue to see the gross overreach of governmental authority, I think that would be a natural course of reasoning for anyone who's a student of history. Secondarily, moving on, I do believe that, the government, whether they have the citizens' best interests at heart, I do struggle with that narrative. And I do that because I think that the decisions that have been made, we're not seeing that they're being based in true data. Like, again, we've seen these wildly erratic predictions and models that have been wrong 75% of the time. And yet Governor Cooper can't just say, you know what, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I was following early data that has now come out and been studied again and has been corrected. The original Imperial College of London actually corrected their model by a large portion. I mean, way reduced their numbers of projected deaths. And instead of him having the humility to say, maybe I made a mistake and we actually could all go back to work and we actually could all get back to our normal lives with just some general precautions, instead of him doing that, I feel like that it's an issue maybe of pride or whatever it is with him. He can't admit that he was wrong. And so do I think he has the best interests of North Carolina citizens at heart right now? No, I absolutely think that he's playing politics. And I think that there's been several articles out in just this week alone. We had Fox News covering a group of 600 physicians coming forward to discuss how the shutdown is terrible. It's the worst possible choice to continue to stay indoors. I've talked to doctors personally that I know that have told me verbatim, the longer we stay inside, the more harm we're going to all do to our immune systems, the more the virus is just going to mutate. We're not solving any problems. In fact, we're digging ourselves into a hole. And then the John Locke Foundation actually just covered a very noteworthy economist who wonders why no economists have been, taken into the team of people making decisions here. Why have they not been consulted on these decisions? And his quote by his map is that North Carolina is bleeding $375 million every day in gross profit loss. And that's not counting the increased cost of businesses. That's not counting people's mortgages that are going under. That's not counting a lot. That's just North Carolina's gross income, $375 million every day. So no, I have to agree that, whoever it was that came out and said he's playing politics, maybe it was President Trump. I've read so much lately, I'm not sure who that quote came from, but I do agree he's playing politics. I don't believe that he's got my best interest at heart. Absolutely not.
Ashley. Hi. Thank you. Ashley, I know that you had been looking at possible legal action prior to phase 2. Now that phase 2 is going to go on for another 5 weeks, do you think that that's going to go forward? And I also wrote a story today. Several health clubs and fitness centers have now banded together and are looking at creating a suit themselves. What do you have to say about that?
I think that's wonderful. I'm so glad to see these other groups of people banding together and doing exactly what we've tried to inspire people to do all along, because it is a very broad spectrum. So I think that they have to find, the people that have camaraderie with them and that agree with them and then move forward. I know that Keith Kidwell just this morning announced that he's going to move forward in support of the health and fitness centers moving forward with their lawsuit. I know that the Hair is Essential group, that lawsuit is definitely moving forward. So I'm happy to see that. And I think that at this point, we have to fight this from all sides. And I think that in the courtroom is absolutely one of the places that this battle needs to be fought.
Great. Will REopenNC also be doing something?
So REopenNC is really just working to support these other groups. We're sharing their links. We're sharing their GoFundMes. We're doing everything we can to connect people with attorneys. But us as a movement, no, we're not going to be taking direct legal battle. We're just working to support the groups that are at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Ashley, I was just going to ask you, at this point, we're about 2 months into this. What do you think successes of your movement. I know that when the governor came out early on and listed out all of these phases, it seems like we moved into phase 1 around when he said we would, phase 2 around when we said we would move into that as well. Do you think that REopenNC has made any impact on the governor's decision making?
Well, you know, I'm trying to remain diplomatic and somewhat neutral. I hope that we've been influential. I think that our biggest battle has been, you know, in raising awareness about some of the unconstitutionality of this, about the lack of the concurrence of the Council of State, just bringing awareness to, you know, highlighting business owners, featuring their stories, really sharing the stories of the people who are within the movement. I think we have applied political pressure, and, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't say, yes, I think that some of the hard work that our people in this group have put in has absolutely, I don't want to say forced his hand, but maybe held him to the accountability of the statements that he's made. And I do think that we have been, you know, influential in bringing about some of the other legislation, and we've been in direct contact with a lot of the General Assembly members, working kind of hand in hand with them, you know, in large part. So I think some of the bills that we're seeing introduced are a result of this movement. And I've heard that from, you know, from those senators and representatives themselves that have told us, hey, you know what, you guys are really doing great things, and the pressure that you're applying is being felt in Raleigh. So I don't want to take any undue credit, but I do think that we've definitely made a difference.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, if that's it, if anyone else has no more questions, then I will just say I appreciate oh, Andrew.
Just one more. You
Sure.
for the 5-city event, you said that the information is in the Facebook page, and it is that's taking place on Memorial Day?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And it's going to be very, you know, family friendly. We're really trying to make it very family friendly. I hope that we won't see some of the, you know, counter protesters and things that we've seen in the past. I really just hope that, just kind of hope and pray that everybody will just let us do our thing and be peaceful. You know, and it really is going to be very veteran focused. The slogan for this is honoring fallen heroes by marching for freedom. You know, it really comes down to, you know, we have, I think it's, I didn't see the millions, but millions of fallen heroes, you know, in our country that have died for this freedom that we all enjoy. And so it really does come down to an issue of where does it, and I guess for us, it's a very simple answer. Our freedom has been infringed upon. You know, I guess maybe that is, if you want to call that tyranny, then so be it. But when you have a day where we're facing a situation where you can be criminalized, you know, for opening your business and just exercising your right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or patronizing a business that opens against an executive order, you could face being cited, or, you know, you could be emotionally gaslighted for not wearing a mask or for daring to shake someone's hand. I feel like that these are all the things that are really threatening what makes America inherently great. And so this rally really is going to be hopefully a reminder of what America is all about. It's going to be very veteran focused. It's going to really focus on a lot of the things that are traditional kind of Memorial Day celebrations. And it really just came down to, you know, what do we do on Memorial Day as Americans? We barbecue, maybe we drink a beer, have a glass of wine, relax with our family, relax with our friends. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I just don't feel like that's appropriate this year. I don't think that it's a time to say, woohoo, we're free, because I don't feel free. I feel like that freedom is absolutely being threatened here. And so this is a day to remind everybody that some made the ultimate sacrifice to purchase the freedom that we have in this country. And I, for one, cannot rest until that freedom is restored in full.
Okay. Great.
This is Michael from CBS 17. I just had a really quick question. Tomorrow is just about basically encouraging the businesses and other organizations to open. It's not like an organized gathering of any kind.
No, it's really just, it's kind of something that I was in discussion with some other state leaders. And we all know that Memorial Day is just a huge weekend for business, and it's going to be a major profit loss that a lot of businesses, I mean, this weekend alone, you know, as someone who's directly working hand in hand with small businesses, I know the importance of the Memorial Day 4-day week, you know, Friday through Monday. It's a very big make it or break it time, especially right now. So if these businesses don't open on Friday, I mean, right now we stand to see 42% of North Carolina businesses are already permanently closed. That number is only going to continue to increase as the days go on. So this event tomorrow really is just a kind of a nationwide day of non-compliance that people can participate in as they see fit.
Got it. Thank you very much.
All right.
And I'm going to stay on just for a minute if you have a couple of minutes for a couple more.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Ashley. Appreciate your
Okay,
time. And
thank
also,
you.
I hope your friends' memories for a blessing.
Thank you. Thank you, John. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I echo that. Thank you again, Ashley.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry to hear about your friend.
Yeah, it was definitely a shock.
I know you've been talking about that for a while, and we have started to put in some, I'm interested in that. I think it's one of those situations just from a standpoint of, I know that you mentioned, the media doesn't cover that part of the story. And it's
Right.
when you don't have the confirmed statistics to back it up, I think it's hard to report on that and just
Right.
put it out there that X amount of people have died. So I don't want you to think that that's being ignored.
Right. I hope not. And I just feel like I have to sound the alarm because the very first week of this shutdown, it was like day 7. It was a friend of a friend who had already been dealing with depression and just really felt, hopeless, and they took their own life. And then every week of this shutdown, I've known of somebody who has taken their own life. So it's been just something that I've seen directly. And now this is actually the first that was someone that I was friends with for 12 years, like all the way kindergarten through high school. She was one of my best friends. And I mean, I had fallen out of touch with her the last couple of years, but, it's still just shocking.
So a little bit lighter is
Right.
Today I'm working on a story, and we'll of course talk about the Monday protest today on the news. But the story today for me was getting all of these costs associated with manpower. One thing that police talked about is how you guys have been extremely communicative with them, which has helped them kind of prepare and staff these events.
Right.
I'm just kind of interested in your take on that. I mean, as far as Monday goes, say Raleigh police, have they already been notified?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, why are you doing that? Because you don't have to do that. Is that correct? I mean, you don't have to.
No, we don't have to do it. I mean, protesting is an essential activity right out of the governor's mouth, right? So, no, we're doing that because, again, we are a peaceful action group. And so our goal all along has been to, be peaceful participants in the way that government is unfolding over these events. And, it's for the people and by the people. So I think it's time that we, the people, stand up and be heard. That doesn't mean that we're disrespectful or that we're not, conscientious of the, of the other factors or other people's time or money or any of those things. So I think that it's just been a courtesy, and, it's just something that we're going to continue to do.
So the numbers that we have show that there's been at least about, almost 300,000 spent on the protests. And this isn't just your protests.
Right.
I say your, like you own them. Not only the Reopen, but also the armed demonstrators that have been downtown for several weeks now as well. I think some of the protests have gotten up to the $60,000 figure for manpower. I guess my question to you is it worth it?
Wow, $60,000. What? I don't understand how it could be that much for police officers to be, staff. So I would really be interested. Maybe you can email me that information. But, I pay my taxes. So, if that's the cost, then that's the cost. I mean, protesting is essential, and I think that it has to be done. It's interesting, if I could just flip it around a little bit while we're talking about cost. There's a lot of costs associated here with the continued shutdown to these businesses. So I think that there has to be, a balance. If they open up, we'll stop protesting. They'll stop having to spend any money to man protests. So, then we'll see our businesses get back and we can all start to recover our economy. I don't know. I haven't seen those numbers, so I can't comment directly on that dollar amount.
Hey, Ashley.
Yes.
I have a question. What was that number you gave before about how much is lost per day in North Carolina? What was that number?
Right. 375 million gross profit loss daily in North Carolina as a result of the shutdown. So 60,000 kind of looks like a drop in the bucket compared to that, right?
Yeah. So Joe, put that against $60,000 per week for the protest, and the number pales by comparison. So, hey, Joe, one thing I want to add to what Ashley said earlier to you, you asked a great question about, influence and the impact that we're having with the movement.
Yeah.
One thing to keep in mind, and you can go back and verify this, is when Cooper first came out with his phased plan to open the state, and this was in our early press releases, he originally said 6 weeks between each phase, and you can verify that easily. Right. Well, the influence that we're told that we have had on his decisions and the pressure we've put on him which legislators have told us in private we're having that impact. He's moved that timeline from 6 weeks from phase 1 to 2 just to 2 weeks. And I think our influence, in addition to the pastors and their protest and that court win last Saturday, was also a big blow. It's really causing the governor to really look at and really rethink the timeline he has and the impact it's having on people. Not to sound cliche-ish, but I can go to Lowe's and buy a bag of mulch, but I can't go to my church and worship. And how do you say one is safer than the other? So I think in a positive way, the pastor's lawsuit and the pressure on the governor, in addition to what we're doing, is really making them rethink things. I think you're going to see more of an acceleration in the timeline. That's why we're here today with you folks, because 5 weeks is absurd. And now take a look at the coastal communities in North Carolina compared to South Carolina and Georgia coastal communities. These restaurants, it's a make it or break it. And they're not going to be able to open until the middle of July, and they're going to starve. You're going to see these places shut down permanently. So that's why we're here again and put pressure on again about what those losses are going to look like.
Right. And I think, too, it's important to note that someone high up in that Restore America came to me directly and said, thank you for the work that you're doing with REopenNC, because you inspired us to take a stand. And I've also heard that from the other groups here as Essential. Now the gyms, we've all been connecting these resources. Right. So behind the scenes, REopenNC, as an organization or as a movement, has been kind of instrumental in bringing these resources together, but also in inspiring people to stand up for themselves too. So I think that, it's all been kind of part of the movement and this big collective, and we're all working towards the same goal. So I think that if we hadn't have been here, I don't know that we'd be seeing these things happening the way that they are.
Great.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you adding this on. I know that you have stuff to do.
All right. Thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't get to you earlier.
That's okay. This actually works because we're already linked up and ready to go.
Yeah.
Recording. So it works. Thank you,
right,
guys. And I guess I'll see you on Monday.
Okay.
Joe,
Sounds good.
Again. We appreciate your participation, Joe. Thank you.
Of course. See you guys later.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.